Hello everybody, welcome back to my newest installment of the Lore of Fire Emblem series. This is also a 300 subscriber special, funny enough. I can't believe how much you guys are actually enjoying this content and the lore videos. Every lore video that I put out has become either the number 1 or the number 2 most watched videos on my channel. I am super appreciative. I came from a town of 344 people. The fact that 320 of you guys right now are subscribed to my YouTube account, that is unreal to me. I didn't know that many people until I was like 14, 15 years old and actually moved to a different town, which had a bigger and better school. I couldn't talk in front of 20 people when I was in high school. Right now, I'm talking to 300 people as of the last, the last lore video. This is insane to me. I could not be any more thankful. Thank you guys for all the support that you have shown so far. If you haven't liked, commented, and subscribed yet, please do so. This goes, without saying, this goes immeasurable amounts to me, and I could not be more thankful for every single one of you guys that took 2 minutes to check out my videos. Not even. I mean, my average view time, I think, is like 3-ish minutes on this channel. Honestly, even that, 3 minutes times the 2,400 views, you're looking at hours of time that people have spent watching me, and honestly, thank you so much. Without further ado, I'm not gonna hold you anymore. The thank yous. I'm not gonna be pulling your ear all day long. I want to get this video started, and I know you guys clicked it, so I guess you guys want to listen to it too. So anyway, the Loptrian Church. They may be the most evil faction in all Fire Emblem. The atrocities committed by this cult may be some of the most cruel in video game history. The cult in Jugdraw's past has been ruled by genocidal maniacs, to say the least. I mean, they were possessed basically by the incarnation of the devil itself. Mass murderings, child sacrifices, burning people, torturing people, all in the name of the Dark Lord Loptyr. But first, we must explain a little bit of where this whole Loptyr thing came together. So anyway, in the year 440, there was a man named Gare. He was a normal bishop of an ancient Jugdralian religion. He heard a legend stating that if one was to drink the blood of a dragon, they would be bestowed upon power incomprehensible to men at the time. Now, need I mind you, this is before the time that tomes and staves even existed. So, honestly, this was as primal as Fire Emblem could imagine. Can you imagine a Fire Emblem game with no tomes whatsoever? I can't. I mean, magic is a major part of Fire Emblem. I can't imagine a Fire Emblem game without tomes. They are super important. Also, this artwork, Gare doesn't have a portrait. My friend Armor Slayer, he made this for me. If you watch Mecha's videos, you'll always see Armor Slayer pinned to the top comments because he makes all the timestamps. He is a great guy. I am so thankful for this picture that, honestly, this is canon. This is how Gare looks, and until someone else shows me another picture otherwise, you won't change my mind. This was the first picture of Gare that we've had since 1996, which is like 26 years ago. So as far as I'm concerned, Armor Slayer, thank you. You're the reason we have any knowledge of what Gare looks like. The only thing that I made sure he had was the red hair. Because if you look back, every member of the cult, they have red hair. You have Salem, Manfroy, Julius, you have Arvis. They all have bright red hair. And I felt like that's something that just kind of became part of the cult over time. I will explain further into that later on about the red hair coloring, but just so you know, that is the thought semblance of why we made everything on him red. Because if you look at everybody else in the cult, they're either bald, red hair, or if they're a woman, they have like pinkish purplish hair. So that's why we made him look in the way that he looks there. But honestly, no one else has ever even attempted to make artwork of Gare. So this is all that we have. So, Gare, his only expertise was in medicine when he left. But with a thirst to be more powerful, he set out on a long journey In the year 440, in search of a dragon to ingest the blood of. This would bring him to Arcania, during the time that Naga was waging war across the Earth Dragons. It is unknown if Gare deliberately wanted an Earth Dragon, or if he saw it more of like a loose cannon pick due to the Earth Dragon's mental degradation, since they refused to infuse their power into the Dragonstones. It's almost as if he was hoping to find a divine dragon, who, as the name implies, are a more docile, friendly type of dragon. If he didn't, maybe he didn't know the difference in the two. Maybe he just didn't care. But what we do know for sure is that the dragon that Gare ran into, his name was Loptis. Loptis, he only wanted to terrorize the human race. Even seeing his own death coming from the War of Naga, this is partially why he agreed to aid Heir in his quest for power, because granting him a drop of his blood and the tome that we now know as Loptyr, it possessed Gare fully. The man that we know now as Gare, he was completely gone at this point. But, that being said, this possession tactic is a feature copied by two more of the Divine Dragon tomes, Forseti and Naga. Naga, we don't have enough time with Julia to really understand if Naga actually takes over Julia's mind, but if we look at Forseti, what he did to Lowen was basically turn him into a puppet. Lowen no longer really cared about his family. Lowen, the only thing that he cared about was winning the war, winning the battle. His humanly emotions, they were practically gone. I mean, it is absolutely, insane what these dragons are capable of. The possession, it's not really outright said, because he does cry for Tini. So, I mean, if you're possessed, you still do have some emotions. But he didn't cry over his wife, Erin, when he found out that she died. So we really don't know the extent to what the possession really takes over. Later that same year, though, Gare, who's now possessed by Loptyr, he headed back to Jugdraw and founded the Loptyrian Church. With the help of Loptyr, Gare was also able to create the very first tomes and staves that Jugdraw has ever seen. And that's what I mean. They didn't even know what magic was when all this was occurring. So, honestly, you could only tell, back then, if someone used fire on you, that would have done, the base damage. Plus, there's no way you would have had resistance because they didn't know that magic was a thing. No one would have ever practiced it, meaning no one would ever have a defense built up for magic. Then, in 447, he then created 12 warriors that we now know as the Deadlords. With these new powers, he would easily conquer all of Jugdraw and destroy the world's only superpower at the time, the Granvale Empire, leaving the world in the hands of the new Loptrian Empire. It is also mentioned in scripture that anyone still believing in the ancient religions would be cast aside by society, forced to live their lives as slaves, unless they could muster up enough coin to pay for their part in becoming the church. Which, honestly, would you rather have a few generations living as slaves and then becoming free for the rest of eternity? Or would you rather live your life like the cult does? Which we'll see what happens to the cult later on. I mean, the cult, yeah, they're leading stuff now, but they do get what's coming to them. So don't just hate them. A lot of these people, they were completely uneducated and they didn't know anything that they were going up against. Like they said, they didn't even know that magic existed at the time. At this point, Gare was practically the only person able to even use magic. That being said, though, less than a year after becoming the Emperor, Gare would start committing atrocities in which the Jugdraw has never seen before. Starting with the Great Purge, in which 100,000 people would die. I mean, if you look at one of my Iron Mans, I might have 10, 15 people dying in the entire war. But 100,000 people dying, that is insane. This was followed by the Sorrow of Melitos, where children would be sacrificed in the name of Loptis. This event being thought to be the very first child hunt in all of Jugdraw. Then the Massacre of Ada, where another 10,000 people were killed. Gare would die at some point within these 78 years, but that was all lost history. I looked, there's no information that we have within the 78 years between Gare the First and who we could only assume to be a different Gear, because there's another large time gap that comes up very soon. So we don't know what Gear they're really talking about right here in this part. But regardless, during the year 535, brother of the Emperor at the time, Media. Now, all I want to say though, really quick, is like I said, each Loptis leader, they would inherit the name Gear on the day that they became the Emperor. So during the year 535, brother of the Emperor at the time, Media, he would start a rebellion against Loptyr, since Gear refused to see the error in his ways and didn't care about the suffering and torture of the people of the kingdom that they were going through. The rebellion would subsequently fail, but unable to kill his own brother, rather than kill him, which is shocking, seeing, as what Loptyr is. Gear had Media sent in exile to the Spirit Forest to live out the rest of his days in pure isolation, unable to influence another uprising ever again. Oh, sorry. I skipped this. This was supposed to be a picture of, the cult. I took this myself. I made it myself. Sorry. And this is a picture from the TCG game of the Verdane Spirit Forest. I had to add this. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Sadly, the card game came out, in like 96. So I wouldn't even know where to find this or where to play it anymore or how to play it. But I really do like incorporating this artwork wherever I can. Okay. Sadly for Media though, people would end up dying to this exile, because his exile is the reason why the Loptyr blood remains today. It wouldn't be until another 76 years later before anyone else would start a rebellion against the Loptyr, with the first true resistance starting in 611. Sadly, the resistance force would be crushed and left only with Darna as their last resistance, when in 632 the miracle of Darna occurred, in which the divine dragons gave their blood to the 12 warriors so that they would wield the holy weapons, the holy weapons were also inscribed with a dragon stone. So that's why someone with a holy blood is the only one that could use said holy blood weapon. You need Forseti blood to use the Forseti tome. You need, you get what I mean. You need, the Naga tome to use Naga blood. That blood to use Naga tomes. That's, you get what I mean. But regardless, and also here's a really nice picture I like. This is from Intelligent Systems' old website. This is Naga fighting Loptyr in Darna, and I think this is absolutely beautiful. The website's in Japanese, and you need the Wayback Machine to even be able to find this. But I think this is one of those pictures that are just lost to time, that no one even talks about, no one mentions this, no one shares. I love this picture. I really love it. But anyway, sadly, the resistant force would be crushed and left only with Darna as their last resistance, when in 632 the miracle of Darna occurred, in which the divine dragons gave their blood to 12 warriors, so they would wield holy weapons and easily defeat the Empire's army. In 648, the final Gear would be defeated in battle, slain by Saint Hein, wielding Naga herself. This would be the end of the Empire, Loptyr, and the cult for almost 2 centuries, resulting in the cult having to seek shelter in the Aged Shrine until they could locate a heir to the Loptyrian throne. And as you can see, this is what I mentioned earlier. Every member that we know of the cult that actually has a name, they all have red hair. We have Salem, we have Manfroy, we have Julius, we have Arvis, and we have Victor. And if you look at the women, we have Shigen, I don't know how to pronounce her. We have Daedra, we have Julia, and we have Sarah. They all have pinkish purplish hair. One thing that's really boggles my mind a little bit is the fact that red hair in real life is the most recessive type of hair possible. If you have red hair and you breed of somebody who has black hair, blonde hair, whatever, those other hairs, they are most likely to be able to branch out, and the red hair will stay behind in recessive genes. I have red in my beard. I don't have red in the top of my hair. That's just how it goes. So in my opinion, when these guys were forced to live in exile in the Shrine, then they were forced to do a lot of inbreeding. Which, in Fire Emblem 4 standards, that's normal. But, like, look at, they all have recessive hair colors. And that's one thing that no one even mentions either. Salem, as far as we know, as well as Manfroy, and by extension Sarah, they have no relation to anybody else in the cult that we know of, but they all have the same hair. So I think there's a lot of recessive inbreeding happening here. And honestly, if anybody else has any other theories, please let me know. Okay, so just gotta see where I laid off here. In another twist of fate, sorry. In a twist of fate, people of Loptrian blood would be hunted down by the Granvalian people, resulting in very few members being fought in Generation 1 of FE4. It is believed by me, and my general hypothesis, that the cult were down to such few numbers that they were forced to inbreed with each other, resulting in every member and every person of Loptrian blood either being bald, have bright red hair, such as Manfroy, Arvis, Julius, or Salem, or, if a woman, having bright pink or purple hair, like Julia, Deidre, Shigen, or Sarah. Red hair is also the most recessive hair color in the modern world that we live in ourselves, helping to prove the point of their gene pool not being very far spread. Their time in the shrine was brutal. It warped the minds and twisted their realities, believing that the only chance they'll ever have in life was if the Dark Lord could be resurrected. Scratching upon the walls until their fingers bled trying to get out, while their children, who didn't understand the outside world, would scribble on the walls about fantasies of their Dark Lord. These children would grow teaching their perspective to the children, into their children, until the end result is what we see today. The church prior to 757 was led by a man named Manfroy. A man so evil he murdered his own son-in-law, resulting in his only known family member, a girl named Sarah, to despise him. The manga, which I only consider canon if it's convenient to me, states that the reason Manfroy hates people so much is because him and his best friend, who is also his adopted sister, were curious on what the outside world looked like, and wandering outside, the two children, they were captured by Granvalians. Manfroy's parents, they came out trying to persuade the Granvalians to not kill their children. They were willing to put down their own lives as long as it made their children to stay alive. But sadly, all four of them would end up being burned at the stake. Manfroy, he would survive this, and from that day on, he would hate people of Granvale more than he ever thought would be imaginable. Manfroy telling this to Lowen, it made Manfroy shed a tear, proving that the people in the cult, like, they are still in touch with some of their emotions. They aren't completely savage beings, and that's the age shrine there, where they would stay. Well, this is for later. Manfroy, at some point, would later learn of Arvis's Loptrian blood, and started with his knowledge as a bargaining tool for more power. First, he orchestrated the assassination of the Isaacian king and Prince Kurth, pinning both on Sigurd's dad, launching a war between Granvale and Isaac. He then had one of his goons, Sanima, advise the sons of Verdane's king, as well as King Bartra himself, to kidnap Lady Ideen, and the close proximity to the spirit force allowed the cult to look for Deidre, the only living heir to Loptyr other than Emperor Arvis himself. Manfroy is also seen in this chapter after Sanima slays Batter, asking Sanima if he could still control the Verdite horde after the death of their king. Manfroy would then be seen orchestrating against Sigurd's army in Chapter 2, bending the ear of Chagall to listen to him, putting the ideas in Chagall's head that he himself could be emperor one day if he just listens to Manfroy. This would lead to Chagall doing many rash decisions and being abandoned by Manfroy moments before his death, after achieving everything that he could from Chagall's greediness. Manfroy would also appear before Deidre before leaving, brainwashing her, wiping her memories, and then kidnapping her to bring Deidre back to Valhalla with him. This would allow Arvis to meet her. Not knowing that it was his sister, the two would bear a set of twins, Julia and Julius. One with Naga blood, one with Loptyr blood. A child of both light and dark, sharing the same womb at the same time. It's almost poetic how that works out, isn't it? And yeah, I had to put this picture back in here one more time. So, here we go. Sometime, but actually, I'm going to just keep on this slide for a few. Sometime between chapter 5 and 6, as told by Julia, Manfroy would appear one night with a dark tome to present to Julius. The night was the night that her brother died. Something dark took over his soul. This was the official resurrection of Loptyr. Soon after, Julius would attempt to kill his own sister, but before being able to do so, his mother intervened. She warped Julia outside the castle, and then herself died. At the hands of not only Loptyr, but the hands of her own son. Arvis, he would become a shell of himself around this time, being in power only by name only, with Julius pulling all the strings. With this child hunts, they would continue in a bid to recreate the dead lords, but also to hunt down the Holy Blood kids that were part of Sigurd's army. In chapter 7, Seliph makes it to the Age Shrine, where the statues of the people who were turned to stone by the cult were being housed. Rumors state that this is where the bodies of those who died in the Battle of Valhalla rest as well. Some cut dialogue states that Sylvian, Lycus, and Azel in specific are here, but Azel, at least, he was only stoned because Arvis didn't have the heart to kill his only brother, and in his mind, a statue of Azel would at least be more alive than the burnt, crisp body of Azel. Sadly, we won't be talking about the events of FE5 in this video today, because like I said, there's enough in FE4 and FE5 that are different from each other that we could very, very well make another video just on those events itself. The differences itself. In Chapter 8, Julius will appear to the player for the first time after the death of his girlfriend Ishtar. He will save her, saying that she should not die in a place like this, and that she had to come with him in order for her to not die, and instead come with him to fight by his side. He would then do so again in Chapter 9 with Arion, because it's never really implied why. Thracia is the only ally that they have, so I think that's kind of the logic why he went and saved Arion, so then at least he could have Thracian army to use as a cannon fodder, which he would rather use the Thracians as cannon fodder, or even the Phrygian army as cannon fodder, than his own dark mages in his cult. I mean, sure, he doesn't care when they die either, but at least then, he would rather yours people die than his people die. You know what I mean? So anyway, in Chapter 10, Manfroy, he would appear in front of Julia. He would brainwash her into becoming possessed by his dark magic, so he could use his powers, since he could use her powers against Sigurd's army, since Naga was the most powerful divine dragon that we know, and the only one he thought would ever be a threat to Julius was Naga. Here, we get the first glimpse of the child hunts firsthand. The knights, they didn't want to partake in getting forced to... The knights, they don't want to partake, but they're getting forced by their lords to hunt down the innocent. We also see the dark mages strip the castle of Rydell down to a complete ghost town, a shell of what it once was. Julius and Ishtar will again appear this chapter to play a game, to see who would be the first to kill a crusader from Seliph's army. Failing to kill anyone, they retreat once again, leaving Arvis to fight for Chalfie Castle against Seliph, the rightful heir. However, Arvis orchestrated so as many children as possible would be saved from the cult, as well as the Tyrfing sword to be given to Sigurd to make the rest of the fight easier in his honor. We also get the first hint here that Ishtar was working behind Julius's back to save as many children as possible. Julius, he gets upset in the next chapter when Ishtar wants to run out. He thinks that she would rather die in battle than being stuck with him, which we can't really blame Ishtar for. I mean, I wouldn't want to be stuck with an abusive relationship with the Dark Lord either, but yeah, that's Julius. We can at least see that he loved her. I mean, like, as bad as what their relationship was, we could see that Loptyr did love Julia, and honestly, I can't blame her, because, I mean, like, look at Julia. If I was the devil, I would want someone that looks like Ishtar as well. The final chapter is the final fight with the cult that we know about. Julius holding over Valhalla Castle. Julius holds no more remorse for the death of his father, and demands Manfroy to kill Julia to ensure that Naga could never be used in battle against him. However, Manfroy, he was killed in battle, and instead, the spell that he had on her, it was broken, and this forced Julia out of her position and into her own free will, in which she would use the circlet that her mother owned, that Arvis gave her, to unlock the Nagatome, only for then to take the Nagatome and defeat Loptyr, since Naga, it 100% negated the effects of the Loptyrian tome. To this day, there are no known surviving members of the cult, other than Sarah, Salem, and to some extent the Dead Lords. But we really don't know if the Awakening Dead Lords are the same Dead Lords as the ones in FE4 and FE5. There's really no way to tell. They don't really dive too deep into that. I wish they did, but sadly they don't. So this is all that we really know about the history of the Loptyrian cult so far. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that one day that we'll be able to go back here, find some more stuff that that I missed out on. Maybe we could redo the video if there's too much of it that we missed out on. I'm very thankful for everyone that's made it this far. You guys all enjoy your day. I'll see you in the next one. And if you have any ideas for any other of these lore videos, please let me know. I'm always open to doing more content. And lastly, thank you once again for 320 subscribers.